Welcome to the Warband, a World of Warcraft podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Swaglock, and with me today is our beautiful co-host, Chicken.
Bark, bark, bark.
All right, well, that's
Sorry,
a new one.
I was trying to think. I've done some robots. I've done some scatting. And this was the first thing I could think of because my son learned the word book, and it just kind of sounds like he's saying bok, 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 bok. And I just think of a chicken every time I hear it. So, yeah.
So this is the first time you actually introed yourself as a chicken. I'm impressed.
Yeah, well, it's because I've been playing a lot of Boomkin this week.
Perfect.
We'll get into that.
Perfect. And we also, today, we are super excited to say that we have an incredible guest on the podcast. Someone that I have really enjoyed watching a lot of on TikTok. Moment of silence for that platform. But I've really enjoyed watching on TikTok and sneaking into some of his streams on Twitch. We have with us Touchpadwarrior. What's up, Touchpad? How are you doing?
Good. It's my first time here, obviously, and just the intro, it's like, and chicken, and then the block was like, what kind of show am I on? I was like, is this how the normal intro? I'm glad that flushed out. Yeah, I'm glad we're there, because like my eyes bugged out. I was like, oh my god, what have I signed up for?
No, that is not normal.
It's like late 90s radio show.
Yeah. With like the we should have had that like on soundboard or something.
All the soundboards.
Yeah, we could bring that in. Perfect.
Where people talked in like the high pitched noises too.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, we need like a soundboard like wow sounds like the Leroy Jenkins and my favorite is like the old classic Warcraft 3 or whatever, where the peons like work.
Oh my gosh.
But,
it's time to work. Welcome to channel 98.7, the Warband.
Perfect. So Touchpad, speaking of Warcraft 3, you've actually been playing World of Warcraft for quite a while. How many years have you got in the game?
19 years.
19 years. Did you start with the Warcraft games themselves, or did you dive right into World of Warcraft?
No, I went from RuneScape to World of Warcraft. That was it.
Dude, that's the same journey I took, man. Farming, cutting down trees all day in RuneScape, and I think a neighbor introduced me to World of Warcraft, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is the greatest."
But I also only chopped trees. None of my friends in middle school told me what to do in that game.
Nah, dude.
So I just kept chopping trees.
Yeah, you gotta get that tree skill. What was it 99 skill?
I don't even remember. I just knew they're like, "Oh man, we can't get here." I'm like, "Yeah, we can." And I just like chopped down the tree. Like, how'd you do that? I was like, "Isn't that what I'm supposed to be doing?"
Yeah, dude, I don't think anybody knew what they're supposed to be doing in that game. I just cut trees out. I think something with runes, with magic, I got really collecting those for a while, but I don't even think I did much with them. I think I just like got 2 of them and I was hyped out. But it is awesome to hear that you've also been playing for a long time. Chicken with us is actually a little bit newer. Chicken's been playing since Shadowlands. Is that correct, Chicken?
Yeah, like season 3. Like I think I started around season 3. I mean, we played a lot of random. I mean, I always say the third time's the charm when it comes to WoW, because at some point it's like the leveling just gets to you and you just can't do it. And third time was the charm, and you got me.
Yeah, Touchpad, I don't know if you've recently in WoW had to like try to get like friends in or other people into the game, but the leveling experience is just abysmal. Yeah,
I was gonna piggyback off of Chicken. There's like, I don't know what happened. It didn't seem like it makes sense, but there's a lot of people that, back in the day would be like, oh, it's Wrath Lich King, baby. Like somebody that'll join during Wrath. A lot of, it's like the 5th person I've heard like, yeah, it's joined in Shadowlands. I'm like, of all times, really?
The worst expansion. Could have been,
the only way is up, I guess, right? So it's been a magical experience.
He's still here.
Goodness. Yeah.
That was the guy that got a podcast, so it had to have worked out somehow. I think it was probably COVID, right? Because was Shadowlands during COVID?
Yeah, like the back half. Yeah.
So I think probably people were just looking for something to do. But I think it took me like 3 times, right? Because I would get you in, we'd level up like 20 levels, and you'd be like, I can't do this anymore. And we get into another 20 levels, and finally we got you to max level, which was awesome. But
yeah, I mean, I started on a rogue, which is definitely not a character that you should start when you first play WoW.
No, that's a rough one.
Not even close.
That's a rough one. Touchpad, you play Warrior now. Is that what you started with?
Yeah, the character I played today is the first character I ever made.
Okay, so like, what does your achievement count look like? That's what I need to know.
What?
It's over 40,000.
Oh my gosh. I think mine's only in like the single digit thousands. I guess that'd be like 4 digits, right? I think I have like a 3 achievement rating or something. It's bad. It's bad. Oh my gosh, that's insane though, dude. And so you've been playing Warrior all this time. What does your WoW like journey look like from starting WoW to like really getting into it to become a content creator? Kind of what's the history of Touchpadwarrior?
Well, the history is I didn't know what to name a character. Actually, let's go way back into how I got it. Originally that summer, I was supposed to go to like 3 different lacrosse camps. Mm-hmm. This is a very pivotal moment in my life. Being like 13.
Yeah.
I was either going to be the gross like lax bro, like fitness jock, or I was going to be a nerd. That was the splitting line right there, and all that determined was getting tackled and breaking my arm in a game of no touch football.
Oh, that'll do it.
So because of that, in that summer, like all the plans got canceled. My father at the time obviously like was like, oh god, my son's going to be so depressed. And so we went out and he bought a whole bunch of Legos because he knew I liked those, and I finished them all with one hand in a day. Yeah. They were like the complex like Star Wars ones and stuff. And he was like, oh no, I don't know what I'm going to do. And there was one of our friends on the block that didn't care about sports at all, and he was playing WoW. Mm-hmm. And like a few of the people on the lacrosse team were also playing it, but I was like, you guys are nerds. We need to work on our stick skills. Come on.
Yeah, get that cradle, man.
Yeah, and then I'm going to get a cradle in something, you know what I mean? It's balls. Scrambling balls. So, yeah, then my buddy came over with the CDs, downloaded it, and that was it.
Wow, what the time? I remember that. What was it, like four CDs or like 3 CDs or something?
Apparently it's 5. I always thought it was 6, and I thought it was like one of those Mandela effect things.
Oh yeah,
I swear there were 6.
I wish I had my old boxes. I like threw them out. I think when I moved to college, I like tossed out like all my old like all my boxes and game stuff. I wish I kept
still
them.
Do. I still have the original box that I got it.
Oh, that's amazing.
This last year I finished every single collector's box. I finally got the class 1.
Oh, wow.
And see, Chicken, you made fun of me for just getting
I did
the War Within, and that came with a statue, so I was like extra hyped. But I think the collector's boxes are so cool. They're so cool.
It's just a cool decorative piece. Mm-hmm. Especially, let's be honest, the average age bracket of somebody playing this game right now is like between 28 to 45.
Yep. Like
that just looks nice in a library. Looks nice as like in the hallway. Just a decorative piece.
No, absolutely. They're really well done. They're really well done. Speaking of those decorative pieces, I've seen your stream background, dude. You've got some cool decorative WoW pieces in there. What are some of your like favorites? What are the things that like get you the most hyped when you see them?
I get asked all the time, like, what's my most prized thing in the room? Because like a treasure trove, that's basically what the player housing is going to look like next expansion. Yeah. It's honestly the banner. So the banner was a custom gift made by my fiance.
Oh, I love that.
She made that.
Yeah.
And so she bought like a really cheapy, like $10 horde banner, like made of polyester on Amazon. And she's an artist, so she doctored the hell out of it. Oh. So she restained the sigil, she burned holes in it, she frayed the edges, she put it on a piece of pipe and then molded clay around the edges to make it look like wood.
Okay.
And then I went to Spirit Halloween and I got the 2 fire cauldrons to make it look like a Orgrimmar banner.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. I've gone on Etsy a few times and like searched for like Warcraft banners, and like every time I've seen one, I'm like, but dude, that's not as good as touchpads. Like that is like yours is like the standard for some reason for me. Whenever I see them, I'm like,
gave one away too. You missed out.
No.
Yeah, she made a second one. We held on to it for like 3 years and just decided to do it as a giveaway.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool.
2 months ago.
That is pretty cool, dude. And we'll have to talk some more, I think, about some of your stream stuff later because you do like a way over the top with just like cool stuff. Like every time I like look at a clip from your stream, you're either like in a costume or you're doing some sort of event or like it's like it looks like a party of an experience. So we'll get to that, I think, a little bit later maybe. But continuing on this journey of Touchpadwarrior, because I think you almost got to, but the reason why you're called Touchpadwarrior, right? So you were not doing lacrosse, you got into World of Warcraft, you installed the CDs. So why?
A laptop.
Why a laptop? Yes.
So that's why. And nobody in my household or any of my friends knew you could plug a mouse into a laptop.
That'll do it. Is it tough like nowadays to still find? Because I know you still play on touchpad. Is it hard to find keyboards that like have good touchpads in them?
No, I've been rocking with the same company now for about 6 years.
Okay.
Not sponsored by them or anything. It's just some like German tech company called Adeso.
Okay.
Not even shouting them out. I don't know. Like they don't give me free.
Well, we're gonna have to find. We're gonna get you that sponsorship. We're gonna do it. We're gonna make it
there's
happen.
something in the works that I just can't talk about right now. But you know, there's good companies looking out for me.
Perfect.
But yeah, they last about 2 years, and then so every year I buy one.
Okay.
So that way I'm always ahead. I have like 3 or 4 backups right now, so I'm at least good for the next 8 years.
Perfect. Have you done like streams or like challenges where you try to play on like mouse or something? Does it throw you off? Okay. I'm sure it throws you off quite a bit.
Because surprisingly, like I'm pretty ambidextrous. I write with my right hand though.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm dominantly right-handed. But I use the cursor, like the touchpad, with my left hand.
Yeah.
So it's weird because like when I would work a regular job and have to put in numbers and stuff with a mouse, it felt awkward because I'd have to use my right hands, and then they don't make a lot of gamer mouses that use left hand.
Nope.
And so like there's nothing that really works. They're all naturally designed to be right-handed, so I have to like position everything weird when I do like goals or sub goals and stuff for playing with a mouse. I'm like, okay, well, this isn't okay. I'm just gonna play with my left hand. Okay,
that makes sense.
Just rock it that way.
No, that's pretty cool. Do you find that there's things that are easier for you, like using a touchpad, that like maybe another, like I don't know, like in my mind, there's probably pros and cons to everything, right? So with your hand positioning being different and using your thumbs probably more so for movement, maybe, I don't know. Do you find that you have better access to more keys?
Yeah, so both hands are naturally on the keyboard. A lot of people have asked me, just like, how have you not developed arthritis by now, right? Or like, carpal tunnel. I think it's around the bend, but 19 years is pretty good for a run on like the 40,000 hours of playtime.
Oh my goodness.
So I think it's just because over the years, when I started keybinding and stuff, like in Burning Crusade, I was like, okay, where do my hands fit naturally? Like, where do they go? Okay, cool. Yeah. Do this button. And just like slowly add the keybinds, as a lot of us like end up developing into, right? Like, oh, you're not supposed to click your abilities? Got it. So you slowly add a few buttons. Yep. So everything just naturally places on the keyboard. There's a few things that I keep away so I don't like fat finger that, like interrupt or like a major stun.
That makes sense.
As like a combo macro, but it's just natural hand positioning. My hands are always relaxed. My wrists don't really move a lot, like how a lot of y'all do with your mouses.
Yep. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think is when the first time I saw like you make a video about playing with a touchpad, my instinct was like, ugh, how can he do that? That's he's hurting his DPS or something. And then as I thought about it, I was like, no, actually, it probably works out just fine. Like there's like if anything, it probably has there's probably benefits to it. I've seen people on controller.
Yeah. I used to do like hardcore raiding, like in Burning Crusade all the way to Kata.
Yeah.
And that was like 6 nights a week, 7 nights optional. And it was like 5-6 hours a night, you know?
Dude, those are the times.
And yeah, it didn't really affect me. I had 5 FPS like on that laptop. Like,
yeah, that's probably worse.
Zoom all the way in on Starfang and Ice Crown Citadel to have 4 FPS. Luckily enough, that boss fight, you just stand still. So
yeah, you do what you gotta do, man. You do what you gotta do, get the kill. And so long as no one else knows, right? You're probably not in the guild going like, yeah, dude, I get 4 frames per second.
I kept it a secret for years while I was in that guild.
I remember when I was playing back then, because I was young, right? I think I was like in early high school or something playing, trying to keep it a secret.
Getting in vents and then not having your voice crack.
Yep. Trying to like keep it a secret too. Like you join a guild and you're doing stuff with them and you're like, I don't want anybody to know I'm a kid because I don't want to be kicked off this team.
Yep.
All right.
Pretty fair.
So the last question I have for you right now, and just about your experience with WoW before we dive into some WoW news and stuff going on in the world of Azeroth. You were expecting Warcraft. But last question I got for you, Touchpad. What was your transition then like into a content creator, right? Like what did it look like for you to get started with content? And then where did it really feel like things were taking off? Because you're crushing it. The stuff you make is incredible. I use your content all the time when I'm like trying to track like collectibles or achievements or news coming up. I know a lot of people in our guild reference your content a lot. Our guild master is constantly reposting things that you'll post, helping players collect stuff. So where did you how did you get started, and where do you feel like it really hit its stride well?
I started streaming about 8-9 years ago. I know it was like the launch of WoD. The computer wasn't nearly like set up well enough to do that, so it was like kept trying, and like it didn't realize all the stuff you had to do. And back in that day, for streaming on Justin TV, everything was like a magic trick. You couldn't really like search up on YouTube like how to start streaming like you can nowadays, and you get littered with a whole bunch of videos.
Yep.
So originally I just started with an Instagram account.
Okay.
That was what I did, and I was just like, I posted like a picture of my character like with my phone like at the screen of my laptop, in my tier 3 armor that I got in MOP.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is awesome. Hell yeah. And it actually got like more likes than anything I've seen. I was like, wow, 50 likes. Oh my God, there's nerds out there on Instagram.
This has potential.
And
yeah.
Then, yeah. And then so I was like, okay, cool. And like I started making a lot of WoW friends from doing that, especially at a time in my life where at that point I was already been playing for like 9 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
I was like starting to lose some of those friends, right? In 9 years of playing the game, you're going to lose somebody to enjoy the game with and share experience. And so what I discovered was I was able to make connections from people that weren't even on my server, or like were across the pond, and be able to share your experiences in WoW. So that's what I started doing, social media wise, was Instagram.
Okay, that makes sense.
I still have that today.
Yeah, because your Insta is pretty big, right? From what I've seen, like it seems like you have a very, especially for WoW creators, a very consistent Instagram following.
Yeah, I was really hoping I could hit that 100K before the end of the year, but it didn't happen.
And we got a couple weeks. We'll find out.
Gotta get 2K followers.
We can make it happen.
But yeah, and then the streaming stuff, I had no idea what I was doing. Like as I think most people do when they start doing it. And I just kept rolling with the punches. There was a few times where I did like a 12-hour stream, realized I didn't even hit the go live button.
Oh no!
Because I was used to having no audience anyways, right?
Yeah.
Like nobody popping in, and I did like a full. I was like, all right, well, thanks if anybody's watching. And then I looked at the button. I was like, oh
no!
Jeez.
But now, like they're popping off. So it seems like you've come a long way.
Yeah, a lot of it's just all self-taught stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just had to learn my own way. I have personal gripes with how that works and that atmosphere and whatnot. How people don't really care about sharing that kind of information. I don't care. I'm an open book. I've had plenty of my peers like hit me up like, hey, dude, how do you do this? How do you do that? I'm like, here you go. Here's all the information. I'm like, this is what I would suggest for like a path for you and blah, blah, blah. They're like, what the?
Yeah, it's fun to talk about.
So guide.
It's just
like,
enjoyable.
Because I don't care about trying to pigeonhole a weird niche market, and I want to help people because I felt like I wasn't helped in the start of my journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome, and that's really how it should be. I think there's something fun when you get to problem solve an issue, and then you get to share that with somebody else rather than them now having to do that same problem you already figured out.
Yep, everybody needs help, man.
Absolutely. And dude, I've brought up a couple times, but man, like when you're streaming and I'm like lurking in the back of your streams, dude, you create like an event out of it. It's not like, I don't know if I've ever opened up your stream and it's just like, oh yeah, he's just sitting there playing WoW. Like every time I open up, there's something going on. And that's pretty impressive. What does it take for you to like constantly come up with new ideas, create these experiences, create these moments on your stream that are more...
My sanity is what costs. So
That's fair.
I'm just myself. Like, I figured the best thing was being genuine, just be who you are and just roll the punches. One of my decent traits, I'm never going to like compliment myself too much. And I also hate compliments. So is just kind of working and rolling with the punches, like improv as best as you can. So every night is an improv night. I rarely have like an actual set plan of what I'm doing. I kind of get a feel and a flow of what the community does and what they want. And then when I feel like I'm getting bored, I'm like, how do I add some like another 10% to this?
Yeah,
and so
that's
I sit
awesome.
there and I trial some things. I'll add them to like channel points to see if I like that. And if I like it enough as a channel point system over a couple months, then I'll add that as like a sub goal, or like I'll rotate my sub goals every month and see what the community really enjoyed as an idea or concept. And then that ends up being like a rolling over ongoing thing or not. So it's like any business, right?
Yeah.
When you're starting up something, it's like, okay, let's try doing this as a promotion. How's this going to work? Like, let's test it out. Let's look at pros and cons and work out the kinks and see if we can make this streamlined.
No, I love that. Keeping it flexible, not locking in. I think that's where a lot of content creators, I think, really struggle is the lock in something. Like, okay, this is what I do. This is how I do it. And then it's just, you lose the momentum because new things excite people, right? Like when people come to your stream, it's like, here's a new sub goal for something totally different, or here's a new event or thing or an experience. It really just creates a lot of energy and excitement. If your channel redemptions are like the same for the last like 4 years, right? Like the excitement of it's gone. And I'm saying that and I know it, but I'm definitely not the expert of it. But I want to change gears a little bit here. Chicken, you got some WoW news, some stuff going on in World of Warcraft, right? What's happening?
Yeah. So let's talk about that. We got some, I would say probably the first major update we've had since the 20th anniversary. And that is the Siren Isles, which is our 11.0.7 patch, which, I mean, haven't been a huge fan of the 0.7 patches, but I think there's some cool things going on here. we have the cool ring, we have some racial updates, the crest update, which I think is a cool one that we can talk about for a bit. We got a new zone, some new campaigns, world questing, and some patch tuning. So, what do you want to land on first?
Definitely a lot happening. As we talk about the Siren Isle update, I believe there's a good amount of maybe collectibles involved. I'm not an expert on collectibles. However, Touchpad, if I want to link you into this conversation too, you tend to be like, at least from what I can tell, the content you create for social media, you're very informative on like how to collect things, how to get different mounts or different appearances and stuff like that. What are some things with the Siren Isle update that you are like particularly hyped for?
Yeah.
So this is a different approach.
Okay.
Because of PTR and how it constantly changes.
Yep.
I try to actually frame away from how it works.
Okay.
Because that's the only time I get a new experience into playing the game is when there's a new patch.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So with something that doesn't really matter for like player power, like trying to make sure you're caught up to pace and like getting all the best gear.
Yeah.
This is an in-between patch. So it's supposed to be kind of the whimsical re-involvement of like, oh, wow, that's cool. Where do you get that from? And then I can find it out later. The other complication is because of rolling into PTR, they'll change how things work too often.
Yeah.
So like you invest time, like let's say I find out how to get one of the mounts in Siren's Isle, make a video on it like a month ago, right? Like this is how you get it. And then that changes and that's not how you get it anymore. Then now I just have false information on the internet. And that's not really going to help anybody.
That makes sense.
So I always wait until those things go live, then figure it out, then make those videos.
That makes sense.
So in all honesty, I don't know anything about the patch aside from we finally get the goddamn Stormcrow mount that was data mined and bought.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a that's a thing. See, you mentioned. I'm like, oh yeah, I think I heard something about. So when was this mount data mined?
10 years ago, Siege of Orgrimmar.
Oh wow, and yeah. Is it the Griffin?
No, it's the Stormcrow.
Oh.
So what's really weird is at that time too, when WoD was coming out, there was a new battle pet collecting achievement for a Stormcrow battle pet, and so that was supposed to be the complement to that was that mount. Okay,
that's like the kind of like the alternative to the WoD looking mount, right? The it's blue.
Yeah, if anything,
right?
it was the first one, because there's one in Legion.
Okay.
You know, I would like the Friendship Moose and WoD.
Yes.
Like the Friendship Bird and Legion.
Okay. I'm looking at it now. I'm looking at it now.
First of its kind, because this model also was the chance to drop off of Rukbar.
Yes.
In Spars of Rock.
Yes.
So they just never integrated it. They had the model there. It's been in the game files for years, and it's finally coming out in that aisle.
Wow, that's crazy. And that was kind of like the goal of the trading post originally, right? Was like, hey, we have all this stuff that we're creating, and then it just sits around and never gets used. It lives in a folder somewhere in Blizzard HQ.
Then when they need an idea, it's like, does this fit the theme? Yoink.
Yep, yoink. But the trading post has been, I think, a cool way that they've been able to get some of that content out. So I'm excited to see even now, because the Siren Isles themselves, they were developed for Battle for Azeroth, correct? Is that?
I'm not sure. I don't know like the lore history for the patch for it.
Yeah. So I think
that's right.
Yeah, I think they created the Siren Isles for Battle for Azeroth, and then they
made sense with the Azerite theme. I think we had going on for it. So.
Yeah.
Yep. Used by the Cold Tyrants during the Fourth War. Yeah, I'm just doing some quick extra research, but yeah, it was designed for Battle for Azeroth, and then they just never used it. And so similar, I think, to Dragonflight, where in Season 1 at the 0.7 patch, you're like, hey, we have this whole island here that we used for a starting zone and then haven't touched since. I think it's cool when Blizzard says we have this content. Let's just find a reason to use it. We've created it. It exists. It doesn't have to be perfect, but to help fill out some more time.
Give the players something. Yeah.
Give them something to do.
Also, it's like, man, I have some gripes with some people on their perspectives on that. Like, oh man, Blizzard always like reusing content. It's like, no, one of the smartest things they can do is make older content useful again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or repurposed. Because there's a huge game there of 20 years. And most people, like how it was for a few expansions, like especially, let's say, in Battle for Azeroth, you didn't have to go back and do any of that old stuff unless you just wanted collectibles.
Yep.
And so this is a way of like, hey, you know what? We have time walking. How about we do an event? Every once in a while you can go back and do those dungeons.
Absolutely.
Like any kind of way to repurpose those things to make it current is way more entertaining. And also gets these newer players, like Chicken, to be able to see like some of that older stuff that didn't get to experience when it was live.
Yeah, I think one of the big questions right now is how do we recycle old zones, right? Not just dungeons, but like how do we give a reason for players to go back to an old zone and not have it feel dated? Because I think you've been to some of the old like the Blood Elf starting zone. Is that ever? That's not ever song. What is that? But Blood Elf starting zone is like, yeah. Blood Elf starting zone is like really, really dated looking.
It is, but that's also getting updated for Midnight.
Yeah, I believe Midnight's gonna be doing a lot in that area. I'm hoping Silvermoon becomes like maybe like a hub city. Fingers crossed. I can easily see that. It'd be cool. It's a cool city. I think it's one of the coolest cities Blizzard's ever made that like had literally nobody in it ever. It was a lot of work for somewhere that nobody used. However, Siren Isles has a lot more going on than just that. Chicken, you mentioned that there is with the Siren Isles. Sorry, I dropped the notes. But you mentioned that there's also racial updates coming out.
Yeah, there's a few racial updates just that they've gone through, and I can pull them up real quick. It just most of them don't seem super what's the word?
Yeah, it seems
impactful.
Yeah, it seems like their goal is trying to buff up some of the racial abilities to kind of be closer on par. Like right now, if you're a heavy M+ pusher, then you're basically only ever playing Night Elf or Dwarf, and that's it, right? And I mean that's your personal choice, right? Because they do have really good racials. Shadow Meld is beautiful if you're like a DPS or a healer and needing to just drop aggro. But then you don't look as cool, right? You're not a giant cow running around, so that's not as fun. That's not as fun.
Yeah, I mean we've talked about it before. I think racials kind of hold that little what's the word I'm looking for? It's not necessarily. Yeah. It's more, hey, this is the one thing that you can kind of be different from, but it's not going to be super impactful to your gameplay unless you're pushing like 15s or mythic rating. Then maybe we need to talk about it, right?
Yeah. I wonder too if like maybe in M+ racials just don't have an ability, because the problem is when you have content like M+ where it's timed challenge content, your racial abilities like play such a bigger role, right? Because like every little 0.5% that you can squeeze out matters when that clock is ticking. Being able to shadow meld, right, and like bypass a whole mechanic is crazy. It's absolutely bonkers. And so I wouldn't complain if they came back and were like, hey, you know what? Racial abilities just don't work in M+, and that way then racial abilities can be a little bit more unique, and they can be a little bit more creative and not have like a huge mega like game changing like effect on things.
Hot take for this one.
Okay, give it.
In all these years, I think originally as a core fantasy, it was cool to have that very D&D-esque, right? To have like you're playing a Minotaur this, right? It's like, okay, cool. So I have like 5% extra health, or like my axe has like more skill points towards it, like critical strikes. I think they just need to remove all of that and make it entirely cosmetic things.
Okay. I wouldn't be opposed.
Towards professions of anything. So it's like, oh man, if you really love jewel crafting, then play a gnome, like something like that, right? Yeah. So that way it actually see more diversity, like in the major city or doing dungeons and raids, of people playing what they actually just find aesthetically pleasing.
Yes, absolutely.
At this point, with how much power we have from different sources, not many people, majority of the player base, is going to care about a 0.5% increase to their damage in a patchwork 2.85 seconds encounter. Like, there's still always going to be that person. But if you completely took that power away and that diversity of doing such, then I think you'd see a lot more diversity in people playing a character they actually just vibe with and think looks cool.
Yes, 100%.
Instead of having somebody play a mechanome and they can't transmog half their gear.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
But, they have 500 extra DPS now.
Yep. I think, by the way, mechanome legs are the pain of my existence. Why do they have diapers?
Just don't.
But I think like Worgen. I think Worgen's a really good example where you have like running, right? Like you have Worgen mount form, whatever it is, where you can just like run. And then you also have the Worgen racial ability to transform back and forth between a human or a Worgen, which I've really enjoyed more now that I can just auto transform back to a human after combat. So as soon as combat's over, you transform back. That kind of stuff to me. Yeah, that kind of stuff to me is cool. Like, because even the running thing, right? I think you still have to do the like mount cast. So you're not even saving time. Like, it's not even shaving time off your mount time. It just
because that would have been broken.
Yeah, it would have been absolutely busted. But it looks cool. It's fun, and I think that's what they really should be aiming for. Is how do we create more of that? for these classes, rather than going like, yeah, if you play a dwarf, you can take 5% less damage in dungeons, and then you're like, okay, well then why would I ever play anything but a dwarf? I don't even like dwarves, but if I can negate something, then yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Yeah, and that's always going to happen. You're still always going to have a more hardcore atmosphere towards those things. But if it was completely taken away, I'm curious to see like what players would actually play.
Yeah.
We only
Blood
saw
Elves.
like of people playing Drakthir.
Yep.
Because of like how they work and how the mechanics are in the racials.
It's so broken, especially if you're playing like a warrior or something. Like, oh my gosh, oh gosh, right before we brought that up, I had so I believe in Classic, I think Alliance was the much more favored faction. So way more people were playing Alliance in Classic or Vanilla when Vanilla came out, and then when the Burning Crusade released. And Blood Elves became a Horde option. I believe it then flip-flopped. And I think Horde was when Horde finally became the majority faction. And most of Horde at that point was Blood Elves. So
I almost went when they made it so that Blood Elves could be warriors. I almost actually went Blood Elf Warrior because the mana tap was a rage tap.
Yep.
I was like, ooh, that'd be nice.
That would be nice. Oh, that'd be so good. I didn't even think about that with mana tap for rage. Yeah. I think I know Blood Elves are really good right now for a couple of the affixes. Which has been
they changed it. It ended up being like instead of resource, it ended up being like an AoE silence, which is way too busted. And now I think it's a spell.
Yeah, I think they've been using it for the one of the affixes right now, which has been helping out a bunch.
Yeah,
I don't know which one. We got a Blood Elf Paladin in our guild, and I run keys with him all the time because oh my gosh, that dude will just handle every affix all the time. It doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter what class he's on. He just like. He'll know when any attack's going out, and he'll just go do it. The guy's a monster at keys. It's so fun. It's so fun. They've also made a change to the crests. Chicken, what's going on with that?
Yeah, so I think it's something that we've talked at least on the I think we've talked on the podcast about it before. So. About just, and in my personal opinion, I don't want to tell anyone not to do 12 or an 11, but I think before they did this kind of retuning of the crest that you get, I really think that anything above a 10 was just kind of pointless. I mean,
it was fun, dude. You do it for fun. It's a challenge. And the rating, and you get the title. You get the title at the 0.1%.
No, we don't play this game for fun, man. Play it because it makes sense. Logic, dude. No, I mean, that's always been my ongoing joke that like anything above a 10, you don't really benefit from in game. I mean, outside of just, the challenge, right? Mm-hmm. But now they're changing that, they're making it better for, people that runs the 12s. You almost get double the amount of crests that you get from running an 8. And as well as they kind of bridge that gap. If you don't time the key, you actually get, I think it used to be 6 and now it's 8 for a +8, and then it kind of scales. It's 4 less than what you get. So, and I think this has been confirmed to be going into the next season, right?
Correct.
Into season 2?
Yep.
Okay. So I think that's a major change, and that's
gonna be rolling into the next season though too, right? Not just for like, hey, because it's end of season, we're doing those.
Yep, they're rolling it in, and that is including the change to crafting. So before, if you wanted a nascent gilded crest, I think it was 90, which is crazy. And now it's reduced to 60. So you only need 60 gilded crests. Yep.
Yeah, I was about to actually craft something.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And that's kind of funny. Yeah. It was 60 in Dragonflight, just for the comparison.
Yep. And then the last thing that was changed, and this is kind of a small thing. I don't think it'll affect me, to be honest with you. But it might affect some of our listeners. There's an achievement called Harbinger of the Gilded. Which if you got to 639 eye level, it meant that like I believe on all your alts or something, there's like a reduced cost for crafting with Gilded Crests.
Interesting.
However, that has been reduced now to 636 instead of 639. So that way, if you have crafted slots, those crafted slots will count towards that achievement.
That's pretty neat.
Which is a good little change. But yeah, dude, because if you do a +8 right now, or as on Tuesday, if you do +8, that's 12 Gilded Crests. If you do a +12 key, that's 20. That's 20 Gilded Crests.
Yeah, which is kind of nuts because the people that are doing +12s most likely don't need 20 Gilded Crests. Like, come on.
Well, I mean, they're probably going to need Gilded Crest.
That's why I was asking if it's going to be evergreen, right?
Yep.
So if it's going to go into the next season, then it's totally fine. That's going to help out a lot.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
No, I do agree, and you know, I was arguing with some guildies about this. You know, what is easier to do? You know, 2 8s versus 1 12, and you know, I think it's kind of, you know, this or that. It's not really one is better than the other, but I do kind of wish that they would have made the 12 24 to make it perfectly 2 8s, right? Maybe just a personal preference. I don't know, because in my opinion,
that would just drive people to only do like 2 just to get their craft.
Yeah.
When realistically, people that are going to have to care about getting that level of equipment are ones that are going to be spamming keys every week anyways.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter effect.
Yeah,
No.
that's fair.
I think this, because it's not giving anybody less crests, right? So nobody's getting less. The person who was doing 8s before is still getting 12 crests.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Their crafting cost is going down, which will be good. But then the person who's running harder keys is now getting rewarded for it. I think the question that I have in my head is this going to incentivize people to run higher keys? I'm a notorious 10s runner.
I think it will.
I got all my portals this season, and I was like, all right, I'm done. I got my portals. I'm happy. I'm content. I'll just run some 10s for vault loot every week just to make sure I get something. But it's whatever. And now I'm looking, I'm like, okay, do I jump into 12s? Do I really try to make that push up to 12? That's a big push. That 11 to 12 jump is actually kind of massive. Do I want to deal with that headache, or do I want to say, nope, I'll just do 11s. I'll just live at the 11s range and get the 18 crests. I'm
At least there's some kind of drive towards it, right? So that's good.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then also having the odd number of how you get your gilded would incentivize more groups running. Because if it was only like 1 key that you had to do per week to get your capped out gilded,
Yeah.
then you're done, and then you're not finding anybody else to run keys with, right?
No.
So having the odd number helps with that incentive. I think another major thing would be, instead of just the top end players doing those keys and giving that feedback to Blizzard, now you'd have even more feedback from other players.
Yep.
So the more feedback you get, the more understanding you have towards like some of these mechanics. Some things maybe being too strong, too busted, too easy. We're going to have even more feedback for those things because of that incentivization to do higher keys.
Yeah, I think you're right, by the way. There's a huge cutoff from that 11 to 12 range, and I think that is players like Chicken and I looking at 12s and just going, not really worth it. You know, like,
I'm not going for being an NDI player. Like, I'm good. I know my footing.
Yeah, I'm
know where I
happy here.
stand.
I'm happy here. And I by the way, I love the change to the depletion of crests as well in keys. So the fact that you're only losing 4 crests if you don't time a key, rather than like, what was it, like 75% of your crest or something from the time prior.
And hopefully that results in less people actually leaving.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It is fascinating because I'll listen to I love listening to some of like those bigger podcasts out there, like the Potty C and the Bench, that really talk about that high level gameplay, and they're like, oh, who's ever just leaving keys? But the reality is number of times you get into a key and like you're probably going to time it, and maybe you might not time it, right? But that one pull goes wrong, and that dude just leaves, and everybody else in the group is like, hey man, we still wanted our vault loot. We just wanted to get this done. We were hoping.
And that person doesn't care.
Nope,
and
they don't care.
What's really lame about it is because they're purely doing that for like the Raider IO.
Mm-hmm.
So they just see how many in time. So they don't get hit for anything if they happen to leave a key.
Yeah.
Whereas instead, like if they continue that run and it shows like not timed, then it lowers their overall bracket on that website. And that's what they're fighting for.
Yeah.
So if anything, there should be another thing for like being the first to leave a key. I'm not sure how you can track that, but that might actually draw people in. But then you have to think about the frustration of that type of player mentality for what their goals are, because we all have our own different goals and ambition in this game and what our progress is or what our goals are, right?
Yeah.
Then would that just be punishing that type of player atmosphere where they're not enjoying the game anymore and they just stop playing, right?
No, that's a great question. And by the way, I didn't even think about the Raider IO side of it. I mean, I did in terms of like the rating, but I didn't think about it in terms of people seeing, hey, they didn't complete these keys on time, right? I didn't even think about that, because it doesn't. You're right. It doesn't show, oh, this person left 12 keys this week. It just shows, hey, this person timed this many keys and they didn't time this many keys. That is actually a really, really astute observation there. That has,
I think we should start looking for the red flags of if they have no keys out of time.
That's
I
true.
think that's what we should be looking at as a player base.
That's very true.
Oh, you've timed every key? Carried, or you just leave?
Yeah. Yep, because there's nothing worse than like you have that run where one pull goes bad. But otherwise, the group's chilling. Otherwise, the group's doing good. You just have one bad pull on something, and the dude's out, and you're just like, oh no! Now my key's going down. I'm punished because this guy wants to go do something else. My general rule of thumb is if I join your key, like if I join your key, so long as it's reasonable, I'm sticking through to the end. If we're 5 minutes over time, we're 5 minutes over time. That's fine. Now, if it's like, hey guys, we're not going to kill this boss, like that's not happening. We're not getting past this.
I'll definitely suffer for friends or like trying to help somebody out. I think I spent an hour and a half in like a +3 necrotic wake.
Dude,
like,
Lokis are hard.
And it was a lot of us were decent in that group, but there's a few that just like, haven't done it before.
Yeah.
And we're like, we'll tough it out. But man, this is hair pulling.
Brutal.
But stuck it out. Want to make sure we saw it to completion, and that person learned a lot.
They did, yeah.
That's good.
We always joke on the podcast. Sometimes low keys are harder than high keys, just because you get in and nothing's getting kicked and nothing's being dealt with, and affixes are ignored, and the boss now has like 12 stacks of an affix that gives them like 1,000% damage increase, and your tank's just
if you try to join a +5 on like the average eye level that's expected for +5, but nobody's seen the keys at all.
Yep.
That's going to be more difficult than doing a 12.
Absolutely.
Jokingly, obviously. But like, it's going to be a different dynamic. It's a different kind of beast to handle there.
Yep. But at the same time, those players are learning. They want to get in there because there's stuff. I mean, Chicken and I are always helping new players get into content. It's one of our favorite things to do. And just, and I always feel bad because like you get in and somebody, of course, one dude's in there who has like a 3K rated main or something. And it's like they're freshly geared alt, and they're yelling at everybody like, "What do you mean you don't know this mechanic?" I'm like, "Calm down, dude. Calm down."
Yeah.
He's learning.
And there's options in the game. I feel like it should prompt you as you go into a key. Do you want to have chat on?
Yeah, for real. Are you sure? Are you sure about that? Yeah.
Like I think for normal and heroic dungeons, I also think they should get rid of heroic and just merge that in Mythic. But that's a whole other conversation at the time. In like normal leveling dungeons, there should just be no communication for like between players. Just like you're going through it, you can't communicate with them. Shoot, even block the names. Like make it almost feel like it's a follower dungeon, because those aren't supposed to be sweaty. And if you want to be sweaty because you're power leveling something, then find some friends to do that content with, and you can talk stuff in Discord and whatnot. But I think like a lot of those systems are just very intimidating for a lot of those players that are trying to help out and getting content. Like, come on, we could do a +3. You got this.
Yeah.
And because they've been burned so many times before from that atmosphere and that chaos, it makes it not really enjoyable. And they're intimidated in doing such.
Absolutely. Yeah. It really, like, the number of people I talk to who are good players, and they're like, "Oh, I just don't want to do keys because it's toxic." It breaks my heart, man. There's some good players out there.
PvP.
Yep,
that's true.
I thought you did PvP.
So that's why a lot of people don't PvP.
Oh, I thought you said that's why I don't PvP. And I was like, makes sense. And I'm like sitting there thinking about it. I'm like, no, I've definitely seen this guy.
Yeah,
he's
I've been
good.
2100 most seasons. All right.
Yeah, I'm like, he's good at PvP. What's he talking about? Makes sense.
I'm drunk on a touchpad. Figure it out.
Well, that's the trick, right? It's the drunken master technique.
Yeah, well, that's fair. I just
I'll be mad when we're tipsy.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, PvP, I struggle because I can be mad at other players, but when I'm mad at a boss that's programmed by someone else that has no idea of my personal, and anxiety and all that stuff that I go on in life, then I'm like, okay, I need to stop. Like, this is bad. But I can always be mad at other people when they ice block in the middle of a PvP match, and I'm like, what do I do? Like, what am I supposed to do here, right?
Well, there's 8 solutions. Most of them are on your action bar.
Perfect.
You can create distance on that mage, so that way they can't get another spell off of you. You can make sure you distance yourself from Frost Nova or Shimmer Radius.
Perfect. Chicken
so they don't shimmer onto you for CC. You can make sure you start off with line and start rolling your defensives to prepare for that.
You writing this down?
Or saving and pulling your cooldowns, so that way you can burst after that, because you know you already soaked up at least 1 ice block. If it's a Frost Mage, it's 2 ice blocks, right? So you actually want that ice block to happen, because now they got rid of one of the defensives.
Perfect.
So you're supposed to use your cooldowns to push that.
All I heard from that was play Frost Mage.
No, he's telling you how to counter it.
Have you tried a PvP as a mage? Man, they have a totally different game.
No.
Like, I had explained it to somebody recently. I'm not even a mage PvP, right? There's like with your shimmer and like positioning, and then your temporal, like to know your positioning for that, so you can reset location, so you can have the right line onto the healer for the CC to go over here and then switch targets and watch. Like, No, I'm good, dude.
Yeah,
Warrior, just go in there, zug. Pray something dies on cooldowns.
Dude, I'm that nerd who just goes in and plays Blood DK in arenas.
No, I hate you. It's okay. You can never reach 1400, so I won't see
No, I'll never reach 1400. The problem is I'm obnoxious to kill, but you will kill me. It'll just take you an hour, but then I'll die.
That was one of the most satisfying things. There was a season where tanks were just busted. They were even in the AWC at BlizzCon.
Wow.
And then they made a change. I forgot which expansion it was, but they made it so tanks take increased damage to PvP. I was like, oh, hell yeah.
Yep. That'll do it.
That's funny.
I do vaguely remember. I don't remember when that was, but I think that was about when I stopped because I was tanking is like my joy in WoW, and I think that was when I kind of stopped. I haven't PvP'd since much. Question though, before we jump in maybe the PvP topic some more. Right now they're making some changes, or they're thinking about changes to M+, as we've been talking about M+. WoW had an article on it, but apparently there's a poll going out to some players. I don't know if either of you have heard about this. There's a poll going out to some players asking if they would have more fun in Mythic Plus if it was deaths-based and not timer-based. So more like Delves, how Delves give you like a limited number of deaths. So I've got opinions. I've got thoughts, but I want to hear from the two of you first what your thoughts are.
I'll let you go first.
Bad. He says, I'll let you go first, and I'm just like, I agree with what he said. He only said like 2 words, but it was the exact replication of what I'm thinking. Like that sounds like a nightmare. Like that is literally gonna turn into that's literally gonna be like the Leroy Jenkins meme of like everyone just standing outside, like you got this trash pool of like 3 Murlocs and a giant gooey guy, and they're gonna be like, okay, you need to go in there, CC, and then 5 minutes later or 3 seconds later, then you CC. It'd be a nightmare. It's gonna be all.
And then I feel like in doing like key carries for like that community, they would have somebody like sit by the entrance the entire time.
Oh yeah, right.
100%.
They'd just be like, yeah, you just go sit over there, and it'll take us maybe an hour, but we'll time it. We'll time this, or time, air quotes time. We'll finish this +10 for you, right? Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I think the easiest thing is just make it so the keys don't deplete and just rolls in the exact same key it was before. I think that helps a lot of the people that really like to push keys, because they can actually practice the exact same key again and get effort into doing how that is supposed to go, right? And their game plan. And I think it would make it less punishing for the average player in doing that content. It's like, okay, I'm going to try to do this key, and then if it happens to fail, they can still go again at the same one. And that way, that player also has an idea, at least roughly, of how that key is going to go ahead of time the second time they go through, right?
Yeah, I think I think the difficulty there is you're going to run out of lower end keys for people to run, if that makes sense. In terms of
but you have the NPC you talk to lower the key if you want to.
Yeah, but I just mean in terms of listing, right? So if somebody's like, oh, hey, all I feel comfortable right now is like a +4, and they're looking around, they're probably not going to see much listed in that range. Now, granted,
this is where I feel no remorse, and I have no problem saying this. People need to actually champion running their own key.
I say that every week.
Literally all it is. Mm-hmm. People just look around for other people's keys instead.
Yep.
No, if you want to do a 4 key, run your key. And then people are like, well, I don't want to do that because like I don't want to lead the group. It's like nobody's going to even ask you to lead the group. It's just the key you have.
They just want your key.
Form the group. Like there's a lot of people that complain like I can't get into keys. I'm like, have you tried making your own? Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, no, I don't want. It's like, do it. There's your solution. Yeah, it's a very easy difference between mentality there on success. Is like, are you just going to wait along the road for somebody else to help you out and getting what you need done, or are you going to champion that and lead it and make sure those things get done? It's that simple.
I love. So
I don't really care about that atmosphere.
I love scrolling like X or Twitter, and people are like, "Man, I sat in line for 2 hours this week trying to find a key," and I'm like, then why don't you just post yours?
Maybe it failed.
Right? It's like, oh, I
don't. An hour.
He's like, nobody's gonna sign up for my key because I'm not a tank. And it's like, have you not sent friend requests when you run dungeons with people? Like, do you not keep track of people you enjoy doing stuff with? I feel like people, and I don't want to use the word entitled, but I feel like there's like a level of entitlement of like, my rating's so good, you just need to invite me if I sign up. It's like,
dude, there's people out there that are more organized and ambitious about that in the Pokemon Go community to make Discords to run raids than there are in World of Warcraft.
Dude, you're
even
talking
though we have
to
so many Discords and communities.
Pokemon Go guy.
Ugh, it's ridiculous.
Yep.
Just do it. Just shut up. Do it.
Just make it. And I think the problem is, right, when I list my key, and granted, I am a tank, but when I list my key, I'll get like 45 DPS signing up for this key. I can't accept all 45 DPS. You can't blame me if I sit there and go, all right, who do I want to invite? Here's the three that look best.
I'll make that an educational system.
Yeah.
Or like learning lesson on stream. And we're like, okay, let me show you how this works. And I'll like log in, I'll post my key. It's like, look how many people are DPS that signed up. So it's not just that like you're getting declined all the time, but realistically, if somebody's farming their key and they want to time it, they're going to take the dude that's 636 eye level over the dude that's 626.
Yeah.
That's what you're competing against, because you as the player, when you're signing for those groups, you don't see everybody else that's signing up.
No.
But a lot of people just see it as like a personal hit when they don't get accepted in your key.
Yeah. And I don't care if you whisper me that you're...
Like, I'm a warrior. I'm sitting at 634 eye level. I have 2600. Like, that's more than I even care about.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'll get declined constantly for hours. I'm trying to like show the player base. It's like, no, like this is the reality. It's a sad reality, but that's why you should run your own key.
Yeah, it helps. And I think too, being intentional to like connect with people when you run keys, and it's like, this guy did a great job. Let me see if I can add them as a friend, and then in the future run stuff with them. And I still get messages all the time from people, or I'll message people all the time, whether in my guild, out of my guild, etc. Of just like, yo, you want to run keys? And very quickly I can fill a group up.
Mm-hmm. This might be a little awkward. I know when you log in, it says it's an MMORPG, but it's actually a solo play experience. You're not supposed to communicate with people in this game.
Yeah, that's right.
As times evolve, you're not supposed to communicate. You scare me. Like, if I'm running around in a dungeon, somebody's like, hey, man, don't transmog. I'm like, leave me alone. Stranger danger. This is a solo game.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Some of those transmog whispers, though, are a little extra something there.
I hate you with an uwu, maybe a Goldshire.
Perfect. Right at the tavern. So as we're just kind of wrapping up the conversation though on the deaths, right? The death timer or death versus timer thing. I think there's a small fraction of the player base that, and I think a lot of them probably play classic at this point, but there's a fraction of the player base I think that looks at old style of raid or dungeons, and they remember like, hey, we sit down and we drink in between every pool. We stop and do this every time, right? And they enjoy that. They want that pace because there is something about being able to go in and be like, hey, it's a little bit slower. I can look around. My least favorite argument is people just want to look around at the dungeon. Like, that's great. Mm-hmm. Go into Heroic or go into Normal or Mythic, right? Even just M0, right? Like, none of those have a timer. Go in, wander around, look around the dungeon. However, I do think that Raid already fills that player experience of like kind of slower gameplay, learning how to problem solve, learning how to overcome the challenge by doing the challenge. I think Raid fills that. And so I really believe that the moment they added a timer and put Mythic Plus into rotation, they made Dungeons something uniquely different than Raid. And I think it actually made Dungeons better. Because I remember years ago doing Dungeons and just being like, oh yeah, you just do Dungeons to prepare for Raid. And that was it. Like they were just a stepping stone into raiding. And now it feels like dungeons are their own thing. So I feel like the death count would actually pull it backwards. And also, when I do delves and they have a death count, I literally will AFK in the middle of a delve, like go make food, and then come back and continue the delve. I may jiggle my mouse a little bit so I don't log out, but like...
That's been great. I think delves have really helped fill that void for it. Doing that content.
Yeah.
And what I've seen is this first season happening with it, not to distract too much from the conversation, but is that some players that haven't even tackled like Mythic Plus at least have like full 616 gear.
Yeah, which is awesome.
So now they're like above, like their character is overpowered for like doing it too. So they actually have the gear power to learn how to do the dungeons. Yep. So I think as that's evolved, it actually ended up being a really good system to implement.
Yeah. The one hiccup we've talked about a few times is that we see players and Chicken and I Touchpad, I don't know if you know this about me. I do a lot of introductory stuff for people trying to get into World of Warcraft, beginner's guide type content on YouTube. And so I get a lot of new players. And one of the issues that we've run into is we'll watch them gear up in delves, which is great. Get the gear. But then they look at their gear and they look at a chart somewhere and the chart goes, oh, the way to get the next level up is to go step into a +8. And now, and now all of a sudden they're trying to get into like a +8 key, and I'm like, no, you gotta go to a 2. And they're like, well, the 2 doesn't give me anything, and I'm like, I know the 2 doesn't.
Another complication that's kind of parallel to it, which is you start off in this game by doing a normal or heroic dungeon, and then you go into a raid, and then you go into a delve, and then you go back to doing the raid, and then you go do Mythic Plus. So it seems kind of reverse backwards instead of like, hey, this is your dungeon content. Cool, you capped out the dungeon content. Now it's time to do the raid stuff. And that's all there. But we have these different subcategories for how to gear in PvE content that you can choose your own path, but each path has its own cap.
Yep.
And so I think that's where it ends up being confusing for players when they log in. It's like, what do I do? Like I opened up MS Paint one stream. I was like, okay, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to do collecting? Do you want to do PP? Do you want to do PvE?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, PvE. It's like, okay, then you have 3 different brackets here. So you have delves, you want to do a delve up to an 8, and then you do this, and then you do that, and then you want to go do your daily dungeons, you want to check for the weekly real quick, because I actually will give you some gear. Then once you have enough gear, then you go check your world quest, and then after you get the world quest, then you want to queue for LFR. Like, it constantly flows back into itself.
Oh my goodness.
It's a nightmare web.
Yeah.
Where it's not like a clear linear path of this is what I should be doing, which is fun for having multiple options, but confusing for a new player coming to the game. And that's something I always try to think about is like, okay, how does this affect a new player? Because Blizzard they make enough money off of returning players. That's fine. Trying to convince somebody new to come into the game with that nightmarish of a map, because let's be honest, if we're talking people that are within the age bracket of average playing this game, they're going to see that map and they're going to be like as upset or confused as looking at the talent tree system in PoE 2. Like, it's just be like, whoa, that's too much for me. Like, I'll admit it. Like, PoE 2 I've been told is great. Been told is fantastic. I see that talent tree. I'm like, no, I don't got time for that. I'm good. I'd rather go do a pet battle dungeon than deal with that.
Yep. No, absolutely. I haven't played PoE 2, but I saw a couple screenshots on Twitter or something, and I was like, oh, and like that was
plenty
scary.
Of information nowadays, right? Like, you can definitely look up a YouTube video and like, this is the build and here's where your talent, easy peasy.
Yep, and that's what people do.
It's like, then what's the point of even having the tree? But that's always going to happen for any game nowadays with how we have information.
Well, and that's the thing too, is you hear a lot of people maybe offer suggestions to WoW, like, oh, just do this and it'll fix that problem. Metas will go away. And the reality is, you'll never get rid of a meta.
Any solution you make causes 3 new problems.
Yeah. I got into, we talked about last week on the podcast, I got into a huge Twitter debate last week with players talking about how we just need to get rid of all the difficult content in WoW, right? Like, get rid of Mythic rating, get rid of anything higher. Yeah, anything higher than like a +8 key, or at least don't give rewards for them, right? At least don't give any reward. And they're like, oh, yeah, it was +5, because it said the average player does like +5. It was super low. It was a weird take. It was a weird take. And one of their main arguments was it will get rid of the meta and toxicity will go away. I'm like, no. The meta will just change, right? Aug Evokers won't be important anymore because you won't need defensives, but like, massive damage and big AoE attacks will definitely be important, because now you're in bigger pools. You're never gonna get rid of meta, no matter how complex you make something or how simple you make something. But before we move on from the conversation of delves, one thing we've said on the podcast before is that we don't really feel like delves teach mechanics that are great for raid or dungeons. They're kind of their own thing, which is fine. As you said, Touchpad, they've offered different avenues of PvE content that you can take part in whatever order you want to take part in them. But they're all different. The only question we have is, as people go from delves to dungeons or delves to raid, it doesn't really teach those mechanics well. And we did have a question, just kind of ironically, they're not listening in. They just came through on the Discord a minute ago for the podcast. From one of our listeners named Filthy Heathen, and he said, I've heard your opinions on delves and how they don't teach raid mechanics. Have you guys tried a tier 11 delve with a full group? You might be surprised. I have not. I have not tried a delve tier 11 with a full raid group. I have done it solo.
Have you actually?
Yeah, but I play Blood DK, dude. It's a cheat.
Dude, I know we've talked about this before, but I've tried it too, and I've struggled.
Dude, I did it as a prop warrior. I think I played prop more often now this expansion than any other time. And I just slammed out doing pretty much every single delve on 11, 0 deaths. That was like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just trash.
But I imagine having like probably. Sorry, buddy. You had to find out here. Okay. So when you try to do it like with a group, because there was one way to like kind of knock out those things.
Yeah.
At the very start, like the first week they were available.
Yeah, they had it.
And so they tried to do it.
Yeah.
The boss health was insane, and everything was a one shot. I was like, oh my god, and that was entertaining. And then like the next day they tuned it, and then you didn't want to do it with a group anymore. I was like, oh well, that kind of ruined all my fun in delves, because it was really cool to go in with like a party and try to see if we could do the hardest content with having almost no gear. It felt like hardcore raiding. Like it was insane. It was like, no, we can't pull that one. We're gonna dodge this. We made like, in old challenge modes like death skips.
Yep.
Like in Shadowpan Monastery. So you have like you got
yeah.
a warlock or a shaman, you do the death run, going from second boss to third. We're doing stuff like that in a delve. It was so entertaining. I was like, okay, so you're gonna go over here, you're gonna use soulstone on this person. We're gonna have this person pull this pack off the side. Like,
Oh my god!
See, that's
so
fun.
entertaining.
I feel like it's often the things Blizzard doesn't intend that oftentimes are where we get the most creative experience from, because those moments are fun. Like when you actually have to brainstorm and come together as a team. How do we overcome this hard challenge? That is actually genuine, and that's why I love raiding for that very reason.
I think a way to teach players how to do raid mechanics is put proving grounds back in the game.
Yeah,
That was a requirement in WoD.
Oh my gosh, I've forgotten about those. Yeah.
Yeah, to be able to queue for heroics, you had to complete proving grounds of like a silver medal, which taught you positioning, how to use your buffs, interrupts.
Yeah.
Because I think Proving Grounds is still there. I just don't think
I just checked right now to make sure.
I just don't think I don't think Chicken even knows it exists.
Nope.
But
No idea what it is.
But again, and to wrap up that specific discussion, I don't think when we say that they don't teach raid mechanics or dungeon mechanics, we're not saying that they can't be difficult or they can't be a challenge. We're just saying that the dungeon and raid mechanics are really punishing when you're playing with a group, and so it's difficult having somebody come into a raid or dungeon at a certain difficulty, right? Not at the beginning level, but like at that mid-tier level. From delves and not be aware of how different soaks work and different general abilities or mechanics will work. And we don't think that delves necessarily teach those mechanics. Doesn't mean they're not challenging. Doesn't mean they can't be difficult. I mean, unless you're like a prot warrior or blood DK. But
that's fair.
But we are just saying that they don't necessarily teach. They're not teaching those. They're teaching you how to do a delve, but maybe not how to do a dungeon or raid, which is fine, but it also means when you're ready to do Mythic Plus, maybe start at that +2 range, right? And then work your way up and learn. Don't be afraid to watch guides. I think it's like
That's a big one.
I wish WoW was better at teaching stuff, but I have no shame in saying go watch a guide.
Yeah, there's two paths in doing such. Either you take in what the game has there naturally, organically, and how to learn. Like here's your clear progressive route. Do a Mythic 0, then do it on a 2, then a 3, then a 4. You clearly see like the difficulty going up.
Yeah.
It educates you on the key. And on the in-game services, right? You can go to the dungeon guide and see what happens in there. You may not know like the best pull possible, but you know what's going to happen to that dungeon, right? And there's the other mentality of doing such, was you can use exterior sources, which is weird. They kind of teach that in school, how to use your resources. And you can go look up a guide on Wowhead. You can go watch a tutorial on YouTube for it. You can see how the best players are playing it. You can go into Twitch streams and ask them, hey, like, I saw like you're doing these kinds of keys. Like, what are some tips for playing this class? There's plenty of resources to do that. I understand there's players that don't care about doing that. Understandable. But there's in-game systems that are there naturally that you don't have to even use exterior sources.
Absolutely. You are right, by the way. I think it's being willing to slow things down, though, and take the time to learn, however you want to do, whether it's external or internal. I know I like jumping in PTR to test out dungeons when they're coming out. And there's nothing. There's no resource anywhere teaching you how to do this dungeon. And so you're opening up the dungeon guide and you're going, okay, here's what the journal says. Here's what it says about these bosses and these mechanics. Let's see how that plays out. Let's see what that looks like. Let's go in there, and you do it a few times, and you're an hour over the timer, but the whole group has never seen it before. It's brand new, right? So now that's at the extreme, but it is definitely possible, right? Like as you're going into content. It's another reason why, as always, I highly suggest find a guild that you love to be in. Because a good healthy guild, especially one that's willing to help teach new players or help you get into the content that you are interested in doing, having that available to you is a game changer. Touchpad joked about earlier, but it's an MMO. WoW's an MMO, and the people in the game are sometimes the best resource. Also, sometimes the absolute worst resource. So, like, take it for what you can get.
Choose your friends wisely.
Yep, choose your friends wisely. Touchpad, have you been playing Classic much with the anniversary stuff or even hardcore?
Not really. I did have like some goal for doing a hardcore stream. Kind of made it chaotic. Got up to level 8. Been watching a lot of content from the folks doing from OnlyFans and stuff.
Yeah, the OnlyFans is hilarious. Yeah, with the RP.
Yeah.
I didn't get an invite, but it's okay. I haven't cried too much about it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. So we got one more listener question in for tonight. Coming in from Ricari, asking us what happened on your Hardcore Classic run, because they had heard that we were talking about Hardcore Classic. What level did you get to, and how did you die? I'll kind of share. Chicken, you have not been playing hardcore, right?
Heck no.
Perfect. All right. I was playing a orc shaman. I was pretty hyped about it. I think I made it to level 9, I think, and I had to jump into. It wasn't even that far. I didn't even make it that far. Once I died, I gave up. I couldn't do it. I went to normal classic after that. I went into a cave to kill some stuff, and I just forgot that like respawn timers in classic can be weird because of how long it takes to kill stuff. And so I'm like in this cave killing things, and all of a sudden stuff just starts spawning around me in combat, and I got like 4 mobs attacking me, and I died right then and there.
Death.
Yep. It wasn't even like a heroic death. It was just like, dang it. As soon as I saw it happen, like I can't run out of here. There's no escape. I'm not getting out of this. Touchpad, did you live on your hardcore run? Are you still alive, or did you bite the dust?
Yeah, we eventually did a lot of mock Raz level 8.
That's way cooler. That's way cooler than being stuck in a
note.
cave. But that's awesome.
That's pretty funny.
That's awesome. All right, we're gonna start wrapping up this podcast episode. But Touchpad, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here with us today. If our listeners want to find you, what are some of the best places that they can watch your content and engage in what you're doing?
Obviously, the spicy sites. Just make sure to punch in Touchpadwarrior.
Touchpadwarrior, perfect.
You might not see me. I'm not sure what you'll see, in all honesty. So that's on you if you punch that in. No, primarily what I do is I stream on Twitch. I stream on Twitch 6 nights a week. I start at 7 p.m. Pacific time, so it's 9 Central, 11 Eastern. I don't know why so many insomniacs are watching that stream at 11 Eastern. Anyways, that's primarily what I do. I try to make it fun and chaotic. My inspirations are like Conan O'Brien and Craig Ferguson.
Yeah.
So I just try to make it fun and whimsical and silly. It's just chatting with WoW in the background. So it's a place to be yourself, be silly, talk about your day. It's like an open bar, right? Well, no free booze. You have to buy it yourself. It's like, it's a tavern. You can walk in, right?
Yeah.
You're not obligated to be there. No one's going to punish you. You're not getting a citation. You're not tardy. It's just an open door. You can come in, hang out, shoot some shit, have a drink, smoke, whatever the hell you want to do, and just banter for a bit. And that's what I really like about that space I've created. But also a lot of social media stuff if you want educational things or just something to make you laugh, because my primary goal is just help people laugh every day. Absolutely.
I love that. So they can find you on Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube.
Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky.
Perfect.
Everything.
Touchpadwarrior. Remember that. Again, thank you so much for popping in. Chicken, do you want to just do a send-off? Let people know where they can ask questions for next week's episode and anything else that our listeners need to be aware of.
Sure, yeah. You can do it in the description of the podcast on iTunes and Spotify. There should be a little link that sends a little message. I think you have to use your phone number. It doesn't give us any information about using your phone number, so don't be sus about that at all. Or you can jump in Swag's Discord. I know he always says it's our Discord, but he built this Discord, and I'm not going to take credit for it. So you can drop in his Discord and ask the questions there. And of course, I mean, we'll always have conversations there. If you're new to the game, if you're not new to the game, or if you want to talk about Fortnite.
Dude, we've been playing a bit of Fortnite lately, but anyway,
I gotta leave this Discord now. Jeez.
Everybody, thanks for joining us, and we will see you again next week.